represent as far as the number of lots that can really be supported. Because until that analysis is done, those lots really can't be drawn. So as a result, not to go across in here, not to represent smaller ponds with more lots, if you will. Probably speaking, if there was not a floodplain issue, a person could choose to put more lots out there and shrink the pond. Don't necessarily need 15 acres of water out there to get a water effect, if you will. This area decided here would be the first phase. Only on the very west edge has the floodplain issue. So the lots in here really could be built. But one of the first things to be undertaken, because it's a longer process, is the review of the drainage direction here. And I think that would really address a lot of the concerns that people had, that the neighbors have.
So, if I'm looking at this correctly, I've got several different copies of it, but everything on this, what would be actually the east side of the development would have, those would be public roads. Now, you might give us some information on the west side, that road that comes into the development off of Sycamore Bend.
Okay. The plan at this point, and I've turned this the north is up, okay? Access, 2 points of access onto Harbor on the east. This being the first phase in here, certainly all the traffic would, from the people who live here would go out this direction away to Turbeville. By the way, during construction, this is a footnote on the side note here, during construction the idea is to go ahead and have all the construction vehicles come directly out of Turbeville. That's a better traffic position to be at. It's also a better road condition to be at than having heavy vehicles turning on here. So, first phase is up in here. There is thoughts since we've gone through the reviews, perhaps this road may actually go out to Turbeville. And the thought there is to split the traffic. We're really talking 129, but nonetheless, not having waited line and things like that. There will automatically be a drive that will have to be created for the equestrian center to go out to Turbeville because there's no idea to really connect with it here. Second phase would be the balance. Now that certainly could be broken into depending on the economy. The second phase would be the lots down in here that would then come out on the harbor. And then also the lots on the west side. Lots on the east are thought to be served by public streets. They're all in 50-foot right-of-way standard width right-of-ways. And the pale yellow lots on the west are also planned to be on a public street. That would be this cul-de-sac right in here. The lots along in here, because they're really considered to be real premium lots, they're going to have the view, so on like that. Couldn't really, there wasn't enough room between Sycamore and the pond to go ahead and do 2 decks of lots where you usually put a street down the center of lots on both sides. So that you had some choices to make. The idea was to go ahead with the idea of a possible private road on the west side here, possible gating, but again, you're in the driver's seat on that one because you have to approve a plat. That would have to be a point of discussion there. For privacy and limited access really for those lots in there. The idea was not to go ahead and have those lots back directly on Sycamore as far as the driveways. Again, limiting the number of driveway access points to the public street.
A few things I'd like to give the council from that planning and zoning meeting. A couple concerns that came up on the board, planning and zoning board, was the fact that they had no sidewalks and curbs. That was a big concern for one of the board members. A lot of the citizens, some of the citizens who were here tonight and also spoke that night as well, their concern with drainage like he just presented. The biggest concern is the southeast corner down there. Yeah, even right there where your hand is down at the bottom, that's their concern, where those lots are going to drain. If they drain forward towards the street, that's probably a very positive thing. That's their concern, I know, from the citizen standpoint. The ones who live back there directly, and I think there's a natural creek back there.
There's a natural low area that kind of cuts right generally through this area right here. Yes.
Okay. Traffic concerns, as they mentioned earlier. What you mentioned with that road coming out on the north side or towards Turbeville would be a great solution to take, I'm guessing, out of the 100 lots right there on that side, it's 200 cars. If it's 2 per house, I mean, you're going to take 150 of them almost up to the north side of Turbeville, which would be a great solution. Those were their major concerns, and the, drainage and traffic were really the 2 biggest things that I heard from that night, and that was from the planning and zoning. Saying that, the board did approve it 6-0, so they unanimously approved that as well. So just some tidbits from that meeting you guys need to be aware of as well. But the road was a big thing. Going out on Turbeville would be a big positive, I think, for traffic.
Yes, we heard that as well. Yeah. One thing by way of drainage, and this is something that needs to be done yet, I don't want to represent it as being done. The pond out there is a wonderful amenity. It's beautiful today, and it'll be even nicer when they go ahead and make some improvements and make it a little bit more visible things for people to see. The pond serves a couple of functions. One, it's really pretty. Secondly, it's functional. And that is, it takes a lot of water from north of Turbeville and north of that track north of Turbeville, all the way through there, over the top of Turbeville. I'm sure you've seen the times I had to close that road. And then it has to go all the way through here, together with what the future water will be, from these areas here. If it turns out that the drainage from here can be brought into the pond and used as a bit of a detention pond as well, it makes good sense to go ahead and bring it in here and then slowly release it out. That's a future decision in terms of engineering analysis and crunching all the numbers and things like that. But it's a little bit easier. Part of what our firm does is engineering design. It's a little bit easier to go ahead and have it come that way, because then with your road system, your swales, you go ahead and use the natural slope of land. And that's the other thing that I didn't mention earlier, but it's part of the plan in here. Is all the trees that are out there, that's one of the reasons this is so beautiful. So the sponsor for the project has really decided to try to do its best to go ahead and leave those in place. The best way to do that is let the natural ground drain the way it wants to drain. Not creating deep, weed channel swales like we're sometimes accustomed to seeing, but rather having rather shallow swales on the roadsides. Doing that would also help to bring a lot of the water over toward the pond. I want to bring it over there. And if the pond can be made a bit deeper, a bit more structured in terms of its size, then the capacity of the pond increases. You take more water, so that's the natural place to go. Didn't mean this was to be an engineering lesson this evening. Just wanted to share that with you.
Okay. I think a couple things to reiterate, maybe some of the other questions that Councilman King brought up from there was the lot size is actually bigger than what's currently zoned over there. So that kind of, the 15,000 with a minimum of 12,000, but with the 15,000 being the average, it's almost double. Not quite double, but almost double what the SF3 calls for in that area, so that helps a lot. The traffic piece, Councilman Kinney also mentioned, I really would like to see, if we could, that extra road coming into Turbeville, and I think that's important. At our meetings with the team, we discussed the two roads, Harbor Lane and Sycamore, and the importance of kind of sharing the responsibility when those roads get tore up and so forth. So I think the fee that's assessed on each of these lots will definitely help pay for each one, and I think we discussed we do better, there will be better roads when we get done. So construction equipment out the front end is going to be a big difference. We discussed the 3 lanes for Turbeville out front, which is going to be substantial too, because Park Ridge is going to be 3 lanes coming down on Swisher. So that almost marries that up all the way down to the north end, the east side of Turbeville coming this way. So a lot of good things. Drainage, of course, that's going to be very, very important to the citizens of this town. I think if you could, I'm not sure if that was a current topo or not, but if you can drain that water to that major pond there, that's going to be huge. Instead of bringing it down to where the citizens are at, Harbor Grove, down off Harbor Lane, even though that is a creek. I'm not sure if it's an established tributary, but it's a creek. But if we can bring it to the pond, it's going to make a big difference. So those are a couple things I know you've been working with the town on that piece over there that we were happy with. And the consideration that we discussed tonight for the Turbeville exit would be huge as well. So, Jim, somebody else?
could I just add too, Mayor, that by ordinance, well, we need to mention that there are homes going to also be built on the north side of Turbeville. And where those touch, they would have to improve both halves of Turbeville, but the developer has agreed to go ahead and improve all of Turbeville from Sycamore to Harbor Lane at no cost to the city. So that was where they would only be required by our ordinance to improve half of a portion of that. Jules?
Mayor, Council, my name is Kirk Wilson, and I represent Centurion American Acquisitions, who is the applicant tonight. Just a couple of comments to add to Brian's comments. The development agreement that's currently in place right now, as mentioned earlier, does allow SF2 and SF3 zoning on the south, and that was mentioned earlier that you probably put closer to 300 lots on the current property if you maximize the usage of the property. But I think more significant is the north property, the north extraterritorial jurisdiction. This developer will not be using the apartment allocation that's currently allowed in the development agreement on the north ETJ. You could see up to 900 apartments under the current agreement located on the North Turbeville Road property. That is being foregone, and the developer will be putting single-family homes on Turbeville. The only apartments that will ever be constructed on this property would be located off of 2181 on the commercial multifamily tract. So I think that's a significant thing to point out. There'll be a lot less units in this area, not only as a result of the zoning, but also the utilization of the main tract. So I think that's something important to point out. We want to thank the town council, the town staff, the engineers for us, for all the work that's been done up to now. We'd be glad to answer any questions you might have for me.
Well, that's a good point, Mr. Wilson. When we first went into this project, or whenever Mr. Goldfield was wanting to develop it and sell it, the apartments were the concern, all of them down Turbeville. That's going to be pushed further north, if at all, if it happens. So I think this has turned out to be very nice. The equestrian trails are a good compliment for the community. Just south of there, we've got equestrian trails that are trying to be met up and coming out of Copper Canyon in that direction now, so that's really good. Couple of questions for Lance. Lance, you looked over the
This is
agreement,
This is the, well, we're on the zoning one.
the zoning piece. Anything with zoning that,
No, this is what came before the P&Z, and
okay,
we reviewed that.
no issues?
And by the way, I know that there was an issue raised about no curb and gutters in planning and zoning, but we already have the subdivision in Hickory Creek with no curb and gutters, Shorehaven. So that's kind of I'm not sure where that concern came from.
I'd like to add a comment on that. Obviously, I live in Lakeview, which does have curbs and gutters, sidewalks, and it's a lovely development. Also knowing Shorehaven and this area out here, I think that fits more into the rural, unique feel of this whole area, and as done correctly, looks very nice. Just my opinion on that.
I have a question. I noticed you titled this Steeplechase Project. Is that going to be the name of the development, Steeplechase, or is that just a working title?
That's a working title, but it's likely that will be the name of the project now.
It's nice with your question.
Okay, any other discussion or questions? Okay, entertain a motion, that'll be it. Councilman Clark?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve an ordinance in the town of Hickory Creek, Texas, amending as heretofore amended its comprehensive zoning ordinance and amending the official zoning map of the town by changing the zoning on a certain tract of land described as approximately 117.0413 acre tract of land located generally adjacent to the south side of Turbeville Road between Harbor Lane and Sycamore Bend Road.
Okay, Councilman Clark's made a motion, need a second.
And just to clarify, Councilman Clark is up to change that from SF2 to SF3 to plan development.
To a planned development, yes.
Any consideration? Second. Councilman Watson seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes.